everyone to the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, to our worship this morning, and to those who are at home. If the sound isn't perfect, I might say this the second time today, apologies, but the hearts are full in this room, and we're so glad to be with you, and we're so excited that we are changing and improving our sound system, and on the way to making changes. Supply chain issues are delaying the microphones, and we're in an in-between awkward time. So I hope it sounds better than it might. I don't know, because I'm not there, but you can let us know. And the exciting thing is we're going to have a whole new setup in just a couple short weeks. Thank you to Alex West and all our volunteers working so hard. Let us prepare our hearts to receive our worship this morning. Welcome to one and all.
Good morning. We are a spiritually alive, radically inclusive, and justice-centered community. And we're so glad you are here. My name is Tish Hamilton. My pronouns are she, hers, and I am your Sunday associate this morning. I have a couple of announcements to share today. First off, welcome to any newcomers. We have a visitor orientation and tour following both services today, and we hope you'll join us in the library for the start. We are also posting a visitor's tour and orientation on Zoom. Check the link in the pastoral letter that was sent via email and also on Facebook. Second, a special welcome to our visitors from the UU Congregation of Somerset Hills, who may be visiting online and may be here in person too. Welcome. You are also invited on this tour. Third, the Lunch Bunch is looking for a new spot. Please let Carolyn Schwartz know if you have any ideas. They're not meeting today, but they are looking for a new place. Today, the meditation group will meet at 12:45 in room 205. Finally, today's collection will be split between the ministries of our fellowship and Family Promise of Morris County. You can give via text, via muuf.org, via cash or check in the basket, or checks can also be mailed here to 21 Normandy Heights Road. Welcome, one and all, to our spiritual home.
So I always like to ask, would someone like to help me light the chalice? Wonderful. Today, would you come and join me in lighting the chalice? And would someone help me read the words to our covenant? Who would like to do that? Would you like to help me? That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. So I invite everyone to join in the covenant. The words are by James Villa Blake. And would you light a chalice while we say these words?
Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Beautiful job. And can I get another good reader? Who wants to help with the responsive reading? Do I have another good reader? Great, come forward. Let's see. this one together. It's called Seasons of the Self. And I'll read this first one, and I invite everyone to join in. It's number 627 in the back of your hymnal. And it's on the screen. Yes. We need a celebration that speaks the spring-inspired word about life and death. Through all the cycling seasons, days, and years. And next, here's you.
We need the seasons
and push life out of inner tombs and out of the cave. The winter will go on and on, and Easter will remain unfit, and life will never come again, despite the fact of spring. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Woo! One thing we are being sure to do is transmit, as they say, the keys and passwords to our children so that they are our worship leaders alongside of us. So thank you to all the children who help us on Sunday mornings.
And I invite you to rise and join in our opening song, the national anthem of Ukraine. And the choir is going to sing it once for you, and we'll invite you to join on the second go-around. Heads up, there's a repeat on the second slide.
There we go. Oh, wearing your blue and yellow lights. That's awesome. Very cool. I want to invite the kids forward. I want to have a chat with you guys today. So come on out, sit in front here. For everyone who doesn't know me or who's visiting with us online or in the building, my name is Nick Walwork. I'm the Director of Placement and Religious Education. I use he, him pronouns. And I'm so excited to be here with you and your kids. After this, just for a reminder, the kids will go up to their classrooms. We are currently holding our OWL classrooms, our Our Whole Lives, in which our kids learn about their bodies, their sexuality, as we think that's a really important thing, in age-appropriate ways, right? So it's different for every class, led by great teachers. We also have Sunday school or RE classes for those who are not participating in that OWL program. So, I'm just right here. You guys let me in a little spot. Let me ask you a question. What is the next candy-filled holiday coming up? Shout it out. Easter. All right. There's a couple of important holidays coming up, but Easter's the next candy-filled one. The next mythical beast coming to bring you treats and grass. Classic grass. I don't know about that Easter one. All right. So Easter, but where does the Easter holiday come from? Does anyone know? It's not just the Easter bunny, huh? You met the Easter bunny? Awesome. So where does the Easter holiday come from? Did he give you candy? Not yet. A couple weeks. Hold on, I want to ask him to answer. Okay. Now, okay. Easter comes from thin air? No. There's a tradition that it comes from, a religious tradition. Does anyone know? Easter Sunday, which is... Who celebrates Easter Sunday? We do. Unitarian Universalists do. But another faith does. Do you remember? You know? What? So Christianity, all right? We'll get to it. All right. So Easter comes from this Christian holiday in which they celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. Now, we have a different interpretation of Easter, and you'll all have to come on Easter Sunday to learn all about that. But before Easter happens, Christians have this season, and Unitarian Universalists do as well, called Lent. How many people have heard of Lent? Anyone? What do you do in Lent? You donate some things? Okay. Oh, don't eat some things. Okay. Correct. It keeps on popping up in your what? Your pot? Oh, Lent, yeah. Lent, that's good. It does keep popping up in my pockets as well. All right, so my man Colin was right. Hold on. We'll get to it. Yeah. Yeah, that's something that happens around Easter, right? But so you guys are right. So one of the things that commonly happens during Lent is that people give up things to eat. What things do they give up to eat? What's the most traditional thing to give up to eat during Lent? Sugar, chocolate, all the things that are bad for you. But why do you think people give up all those things? Because they don't like sugar? Because they're mean to themselves? What do you think? Brendan?
I would think that people give away sugar either because it's bad for them or it's that they like it and they think God likes it.
Well, that's right. Well, so you're right there. So, Brendan, they give up sugar because it's something that they like so much. One of the things that's important about Lent, and one of the things that I like about this time of year, is that it's a time for us to think about ways to be better versions of ourselves, right? So maybe you're someone who eats too much chocolate, or maybe you're someone who drinks too much coffee. And so maybe you need to regulate that so you're not jittery all the day. I'm not very good at it. But what other things, so the point of Lent, that was a long way to get to the point of what I want to tell you guys. What are some ways in which you can be better versions of yourself? Charlotte, do you have an answer to that question?
They give up sugar, but then one of the traditions, most popular traditions, is getting sugar.
Yeah, because on Easter you get back all of the bad things that you gave up. That's where it comes from. So you're correct. All right. So what are some things you can do to be a better? What are some things that you can do to be a better version of yourself? What about you, Alison? What can you do to make your own a good girl? Listen to your mom and dad. Yeah. So one of the things that at Lent, I wish you guys would do better at that. This one's mine for those. So we can listen to people better, right? We can think about that. So, do you have one?
Maybe participate in one and give away
Give away some things? Yeah, we can help people in need. It's really good. So the point of Lent in this time is to kind of look inward at ways in which we can be better versions of ourselves. One of the things that we believe as Unitarian Universalists is that we all have an inherent worth and dignity, and that we are striving to fulfill that, to be the good, awesome people that we are meant to be. All right? So that's a little bit of what Lent is. So when you guys go through, here's your homework. I want you to spend some time this week in thinking about ways in which we can do better in the world, right? Ways in which we can live out our UU principles, ways in which we can be good people, right? And try to and act on those too, right? We can't just say, I want to give more to people in need and then not do it. So go ahead. All right, so that's my last little bit. If you guys want to share comments with me, we'll all head out to the great hall there and go to our classes, and you guys can chat with me then. But not right now, because we got more to do. So, does that make sense to everyone? Okay, we're going to let the teachers get a little bit of a head start. Are we going to sing them out? Do we have that word? Okay, we're going to sing them out. Go. So once the grown-ups start singing, you guys can go, okay? Okay, a little intro. Hold on.
Are they for their class? Yes.
And now is the time in our service when you are invited to support the work of the fellowship with your donations. Our offering today, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be split 50-50 between the Morristown UU Fellowship and Family Promise of Morris County. You can donate at the text to give number 73256 with the keyword MUUF followed by the dollar amount. You can also go to nuuf.org or put something in the basket. And we have a very special offertory today that Stearns is going to introduce.
The choir's going to sing for you. We're also very happy to have Tim Davis on drums and Chris Edmond on guitar.
I
Today's reading comes from the Unitarian Lentil Manual from 1943, and it starts with a passage from Hebrews, which says, "Yet once more I shake, not the earth only, but also heaven, that those things which cannot be shaken may remain." And the reading is by Francis G. Peabody. A time of agitation with all its tremors and even its tragedies is a time of discrimination. A time when one may learn what will stand and what may at any moment fall. A time to distinguish solidity from flimsiness, firm masonry from cheap construction, the permanent from the transient, reality from pretense, truth from fiction. The calamity is to be dreaded before it occurs and deplored after it is over, yet it may leave behind it, amid such desolation, the reassuring confidence that there are some things which cannot be removed. When the shock is over, people will look about them for the things they had thought indestructible, and may find them fall into the ground. Yet, with an equal amazement, they may find unshattered those things which could not be removed.
It is the time in our service where we honor the milestones and the passages that have happened in the lives of our fellow friends and congregants since we last met. We have a couple of significant milestones today, and first I would love to invite Stearns Matthews, our Director of Music Ministries, to share about a significant milestone in his life.
Well, entrance applause for a milestone is not so shabby. Good morning. I want to share some news with you today that after lots of soul-searching and difficult decision-making, my husband Michael and I have decided to move to Philadelphia at the end of the summer, which means I will be leaving you. I wrote down things to say because I knew I would forget them all, of course. I'm called more and more to my teaching job there in Philadelphia, where my responsibilities are growing. And personally, we're called more and more back to the city where we met and fell in love and found ourselves and one another. Our first dog was named Philly, so that gives you an idea of the significance. I have loved my time here at the fellowship. I've learned so much from the choir and from Alison and from all of you. And this doesn't feel like a move away from anything, it feels like a move toward something. Did I miss anything in my notes? Just that there is a UU church in Philly, to answer your question that I hear you asking in your mind, but I'm looking forward to not getting up on Sunday mornings for a while. At least for a little while. The good news is that I'll be here through at least the end of August, and so we have lots of opportunities to make music together and party and do all the stuff that we like to do. So that's the news.
There will be a lot of time for gratitude and celebration in the days ahead. And I just wanted to mention that if you're sleeping late on Sundays, we have a broadcast that would be ready for you for brunch time. And I do want to do this. We don't always share about performances, but it does feel appropriate. Stearns is involved in music at the mansion and outside rental today, but it's at 3 o'clock at the sanctuary.
In the terrace room.
In the terrace room. And are there still tickets left,
I think
Stearns?
there are still tickets.
Okay, good. You can find out more from Stearns about that. So, Annette Tyler shares news. You may be aware that Kathleen and Rick Jeffries lost their home to the Marshall fire in Colorado in December. And if you would like their new address, you can check with Annette. And where is Annette right now? Just so people see you. Okay, good. Annette is right there. And you can also call the office, and we'll make sure we're able to share that with you as well. We had another significant milestone this week. Member Frank Gibbs, many people may remember him as the impeccably dressed gentleman who has taken such loving care of his impeccably dressed wife, Karen Gibbs. Frank passed away on Friday morning, the night, actually in the wee hours of the night. And his children had all been surrounding him and his grandchildren. And he was a man who served our country, who was the kind of person who had a philosophy of whatever it is that other people didn't want to do, he would say yes to. And he was in covenant circles and caregiving circles and friendship circles in this congregation. Let us hold in our hearts the whole Gibbs family and all of his close friends. And let us affirm that the light of his life and the love that he gave away ripples out. And it is a light that builds and moves through the next generation. And I'll share that Frank's memorial service will be at a funeral home in Bridgewater, near where their home was, on Wednesday at noon. And I'll be sending out a Will of Life with the details. All are invited to join us as we celebrate Frank. And I'll tell you, he was alert to the end. He was alert to the end. And his wife, who has Alzheimer's as such a dear thing, she kept looking at him in the last days and saying, "He's cute." Will you rise in body or spirit and let us sing together what is actually a healing song written by Carolyn McDade. Come sing a song with me.
Sing a song with
So for those joining us online in the middle of this service, welcome, especially those who might be visiting us from UU Somerset Hills. And just a reminder for those that might be joining in the middle that our sound is not 100% today, but for a very exciting reason. We are putting in a whole new sound system, and so in the in-between, I hear the sound online is less than it was before, and new mics are on their way within a couple of weeks, and so it won't sound like this if it doesn't sound good in a couple of weeks. Just wanted you to know. So we're so excited to have you with us. And as you can hear in this room, there are no sound problems, in case they wonder. The coronavirus pandemic has been bookended by Lent. It was the season in which we first had to separate from one another and from our beloved sanctuary. Now, once again, we are in the middle of Lent as mask restrictions are lifted and people are holding that promise of moving towards an endemic stage. But I'll share this, that we are still recommending that people are aware of where they've been throughout the week and that they consider wearing a mask, although we're not requiring it. And I would recommend that you download the COVID alert system from New Jersey, because I got an alert this week that I had been near someone. It tells you if you've been 6 feet away for more than 15 minutes, and then you can get tested, which I did. So, and tested again this morning to be sure. So we're moving towards the pandemic becoming endemic, but let's be kind and compassionate and not peer pressure one another. Do what makes you feel safe and what's right for you that day. And when we sing, we mask. For now. We're so grateful to sing again. Now, some of you grew up with Lenten practices. Maybe if you were Catholic, you received the ashes mixed with holy water, which were placed on your forehead by a priest or minister as they shared these words. Remember, you are dust, and to dust you shall return. If you were Unitarian or Universalist pre-merger, like my mother-in-law was, you might remember the 40 days of meditations that comprised a communal spiritual practice, and we heard one of those this morning. Or if you grew up Unitarian Universalist post-merger, post-1961, like I did, you might have known it as a shorter holiday, maybe Palm Sunday through Good Friday, or simply Good Friday through Easter, when we shared in the story of the end of Jesus' life. Lent is a holiday with words and practices that remind us that life is fleeting, that each one of us is mortal, and that what we can count on is this precious moment. A mentor of mine from another faith tradition shared this story with me about the beginning of his ministry. Gavin was a new pastor. He received a call to come to the bedside of one of the elders in his congregation, a pillar of the church. Martha was on her deathbed, and she wanted him to visit. Now, he had a fair number of commitments that day, but of course, he shifted things around and went straight to her. When he arrived, Martha seemed to be asleep. Now, Gavin didn't want to disturb her rest, so he waited quietly and patiently by her bedside. But he couldn't stop thinking about what remained on his to-do list. After a while, he shared the story aloud. He looked at his watch to see just how much time had passed. And at that very moment, he told me, she opened her eyes wide and quipped, "Do you have somewhere more important to be?" Flustered and jolted to a new level of wakefulness, he said, "No, I am here." He took a deep breath and sat with her. This woman who he had begun to love, this woman who meant so much to the people that he served. He turned his heart towards prayer and his full body towards presence. Those were her last words, and they shaped the minister he became and the quality of his presence. I shared that story on our last Sunday together, and I share it with you now. Here we are, you and I, in this community of people who practice what it looks like to extend love and care in this village that we have chosen to cast our spiritual lot with. Here we are who show up for one another during and on the other side of good times and bad times. And we also show up for one another and for our families and friends in the event when we do draw our last breath. These past 2 years of the coronavirus, and now beginning a third year, I hear it's the junior year of the coronavirus. This time has brought all of us proximate to death. Some of you have lost loved ones. We have lost beloved members. And we are keenly aware that the numbers of COVID deaths continue, even as they are, thankfully, significantly lower in this country right now. Yet we are about to reach 1 million deaths in this country from COVID-19. Some of us are numb, others are reeling, and some may feel both. It can be hard to remain present when facing a loss, and not just for a new pastor. As we often share with each other in our memorial services, even in a time of death, it is the remarkable nature of life that gathers us. Our grief is important, and making space for it is important. Our grief is evidence that we have loved and been loved in return. And we have been in a season of individual and collective grief for a long while now. And now we add our concern over the loss of life in Ukraine. A time of death, though, is also a time of celebration of the person who is now gone, or the people who are gone, for all the ways they touched our lives while they were with us, whether it was their love of music and teaching, whether it is their particular story of resilience, the lessons of their life, the ways they made a difference, what they meant to us, and all the people who loved them, and so much more. And this is true, friends, whether it was a short life or a long one. Lent is the holiday I will associate with the pandemic, as the lessons of our mortality, of our finite nature, also make way for the infinite possibilities of love to show up. Just like Lent points the way towards new life, we had to practice a discipline of physical separation more than once over the last 2 years because of our mortal nature. But that didn't stop love, and it didn't stop life. We discovered new sources of resilience and hope, connection and creativity, and new life-giving practices. Not to say or imply even that this has been easy. It has been difficult. For some, it has been harrowing. But like that bud pushing through the pavement in the beginning of spring, the forward flow of love and life refuses to give death the last word. The fact that our lives are finite, it turns out, is a source of paying attention and turning our attention to what matters most. Lent is actually about the beginning of Jesus' ministry, not the end. It is about how he lived and not how he died. I missed that important nuance in the shortened version of the Lent Easter season that I grew up with. Lent lasts 40 days, a number said to be the equivalent of the number of days that Jesus spent in prayer and fasting in the wilderness before his public ministry. This is also the same amount of time Moses spent in a time of prayer and fasting on Mount Sinai as he received the sacred commandments and the sacred commission in the presence of God. We are told in the story of Exodus that Moses neither ate bread nor drank water that entire time. While the modern reader might dismiss this as an impossible fact, a metaphorical point that can be taken from the story is that two things are happening side by side. In coming close to God, or what is eternal or truth, or even love, Moses and Jesus are risking coming close to death. Jesus and Moses' ministries begin with an awareness of their mortality, and that life and death always hangs in the balance. An Ash Wednesday experience, if you will. It is from that sacred insight that they then are commissioned and go forth and choose life and teach others how to do that. In how we move, in how we organize, in how we relate to each other, in how we inspire one another, in how we strive to live each day. The three major practices that Lent offers, as we started to hear, and I'm going to have to take the donate, don't eat, those are good, and the discipline of prayer. I thought, oh, there's 3 Ds. That's Lent in the future. But prayer, fasting, and giving. A fresh awareness of our mortality births the will to do things a little differently, to slow down, to turn inward, and to reflect on our life, to give up things that separate us from our individual and collective health, and to make room in our lives for what is truly precious, what is truly sacred. In our busy, often distracting and hurried culture, and I can feel us returning a bit towards that. We want to return to normal, but let it be a new, more healing normal. And Lent can provide us with an awareness of this, the permission to focus on one thing at a time. Now, while I pride myself on an ability to multitask, as some of you may do, this season reminds us that clearing clutter and regaining clarity is what is needed, at least annually, to maintain our pace. Lent invites us into the humbling fact that the best kind of thinking and doing stems from focusing on one thing at a time. It is the only way to give ourselves fully to something that matters, to someone that matters, and to the presence of the holy, if that matters to us. Yes, Lent is an invitation to stop, to listen, to pay attention. The first steps of the spiritual practice of prayer or meditation. A life where we are always partially absent is one where we could said to be partially dead. It is like burying who we are and who we long to be under a blanket of snow. While intellectually we know that life is waiting to burst forth underneath when spring comes, it can feel as if we are dead, not living the life that is ours to claim. So I invite you into these practices, and some of you may have been doing them since the beginning of Lent, since the first invitation was sent out in a pastoral letter. But we're not orthodox around here, so you can do a 40-day practice of introspection anytime you want. So fasting, is there something that you can refrain from that would bring you to a healthier or a holier place? People often give up chocolate or alcohol or meat. But maybe another option would be fasting from fear. That's an important one. From judging, from gossip, from Facebook. What could you give up that feels liberating? We had to fast from being together in person so that we could actually move towards health. Think about, I mentioned 1 million people have passed away. That is such an enormous number to take in, but we also saved the lives of millions by doing so. That was a kind of spiritual fast. Prayer. Is there something that you would like to reflect on that could invite deeper meaning? Maybe the Psalms, which are traditional, or a book of poetry. Maybe Amanda Gorman's newly published poetry book. Or you could just prayerfully go on a hike. It is the perfect time to notice new life bursting forth. What daily devotion might bring greater insight? And I'll lift this up. In this time of the pandemic, we paid attention to who was disproportionately impacted in terms of housing insecurity, food insecurity, in terms of oppression and racism. And we tried to practice a daily devotion of countering the culture out there, which teaches us that it's just about my need rather than the collective well-being. So that is a kind of devotion to be tuned into. Or there is giving. Giving to our neighbors in need is a Lenten practice. And in fact, I want to reflect back to you. This congregation gave away to the community more in our collections when we were separated online than we had done in the past. We gave to the congregation, appreciating the difference it makes in the pledge for the annual budget last year, more than we ever had in the past. Because the pandemic taught us that we all need one another. So who are the neighbors, both near and far, that you feel called to help? Make it a practice, not just a one-time thing. You see, the secret of Lent is that coming close enough to God, or that which is eternal, is to recognize that we aren't, that we are mortal, so that we live as if this day mattered, so that we live as if our presence mattered, so that we don't hibernate and sleep through all of the seasons of our lives. Here is the question. Are you busy with things that when you come to your last breath, you will consider yourself to have truly lived? 40 days is long enough to ground ourselves in an answer we can begin to trust. After the winter, spring does come. After the solemnity of Lent, Easter comes, and we may find that maybe for the first time, we are truly awake from our slumber. And I'll return to the story of my own beginning as a new pastor. I had to go to a psychological testing center in Princeton, New Jersey, where they did 2 days of psychological testing, which is important. Priests and ministers and rabbis, all clergy, are invested with a certain amount of authority. And the psychologist, I'll say, not the medical doctor, but the psychologist wrote on a lot of nice things, but with a big asterisk, a risky investment for her denomination. She has an uncertain lifespan. For those who don't know this, I'm a cancer survivor from a childhood cancer as a teenager. And I now, through the lens of Lent and the lens of the pandemic and the lens of this time, I couldn't imagine a better commission. Because in saying yes to the ministry, in saying yes with you, and you say yes back all the time to building this beloved community, in saying yes to being a parent, to my son, in saying yes to the anti-oppression work we do, in saying yes to the service work we do, in saying yes to being a multi-generational congregation, in saying yes, Judy's going to be outside, to the renewal process, to becoming a welcoming congregation, and really living into what welcoming looks like for an inclusive community, inclusive of LGBTQ individuals today, in saying yes to these things, I feel I have been awake. And maybe, if I didn't have the perspective from, maybe not the psychological testing, but from having actually had cancer as a teenager, I might still be sleeping through this point. So Lent is like an alarm clock saying, wake up, wake up, wake up. The sun has risen. Have you? And now let us join in our closing song.
And as the choir is getting situated, I'll share with you that this is a new song to us. You'll hear the choir sing it through once, and then we'll go back and sing it again. You'll hear the choir sing some harmony the second time, and you are invited to sing whatever notes you gravitate towards.
Circle round to take me
words are by May Sarton. Help us to be the always hopeful gardeners of the Spirit, who know that without darkness, nothing comes to birth, as without light, nothing flowers. So go forth and celebrate this day, this hour, and this moment, and may it be full of life and love. Blessed be.